Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out on this beautiful Veterans Day. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jim Risto with the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce. I want to officially welcome you here to the kickoff of the Veteran Day Parade activities. We have a great program lined up this morning, as well as a great parade. I think we have over 100 participants in our parade. Chaplain has guaranteed me great weather all the way through probably 1 o'clock, but no Husker win that we can count on, right? Behind that, I'd also like to thank Sac Federal Credit Union. They have been a long-term sponsor. They're the sponsor of this morning's Dignitary Breakfast. I think you guys have been doing this for 18 years, so we want to thank you for your continued support, not only of this event, but veterans as a whole. SAC is a great community-minded business here in our community, and we appreciate what you do for us. We have a lot of special guests in here today. Instead of announcing everybody, I said, why don't we just give ourselves a round of applause for everybody that's here? How's that? The chaplain told me to do that, so I've got clearance. If you could please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. If everybody could please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. On behalf of Sac Federal Credit Union's employees, our board of directors, and our members, I'd like to welcome you to the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce Dignitary Breakfast. Sac Federal Credit Union's been serving active military members, military retirees, and their families for over 70 years here in Nebraska. We are a proud sponsor and proud to take an active role in events such as we are enjoying today. Events like this bring our community together. They provide a moment for us to give thanks for our freedoms and thanks to those that ensure that those freedoms exist. Thank you for your service. Thank you to everyone joining us today as we pay tribute to and honor those who have given so much.
For the past 14 years, we've had an essay competition for area 5th and 6th graders in the Bellevue metro area. The essay contest is sponsored by the University of Nebraska Omaha Division of Continuing Studies and is supported by the Bellevue Leader and the Bellevue Public Schools. The winner of this year's essay is Tyler Thiede, a 6th grader at Two Springs Elementary. And if I could please have you welcome Tyler here at the podium.
Defenders of freedom. I think veterans are very brave, heroic, and patriotic. I am very thankful for the men and women who serve our country. It is amazing how they risk their lives to keep our country safe. It would take a lot of courage and bravery to join the military. It is unbelievable how much they sacrifice to serve our country. They miss holidays, birthdays, and big milestones in their children's life to fight for our country. I don't know how I could go through all the things the veterans go through. That's why we should show so much respect for the people who do. The families of the service members also sacrifice for our country's sake. Wives or husbands of the service member have to leave the house when their spouses are gone, and it gets hard for them. Sometimes the military person may be deployed for 6 months to a year, and that puts a lot of stress on the family and the service member. I would imagine it would be very scary in war. Hearing gunshots and bombs would be frightening. Freezing or hot, they still keep fighting. It is amazing. The images and loud sounds may never get out of your brain and would stay with you. All these things would be hard to get over. They go through all of this for us. That's another reason why we should respect veterans so much. As you can see, veterans go through a lot to fight for our freedom and the people in our country, and that is why we should respect them greatly. The next time you look at a flag, see someone in uniform, or think of your freedom, be sure to remember our veterans.
Thank you, Tyler. I'd like to welcome Molly Cogwell with she's a manager from UNO, the Continuing Study Division, and also our essay sponsor. So Molly, if you can come to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you. Joining me is Colonel Coveney from UNO ROTC. So welcome to Colonel Coveney. Congratulations, Tyler, on a job well done. What a fantastic essay to honor our veterans. You did a fantastic job, so congratulations. It is my honor on behalf of the University of Nebraska at Omaha to present you with this in appreciation for your efforts. I also have a bag of UNO swag, so I'm hoping that in the future, when you are thinking about school, you'll choose Mavericks. So go Mavericks, and congratulations.
Please join with me in prayer. Almighty, today we honor our veterans, worthy men and women who gave their best when they were called upon to serve and protect their country. We pray that you will bless them, Lord, for their unselfish service and the continual struggle to preserve our freedoms, our safety, and our country's heritage for all of us. Bless them abundantly for the hardships they faced, for the sacrifices they made, for their many different contributions to America's victories over tyranny and oppression. We respect them, we thank them, we honor them, we are proud of them. And we pray that you will watch over these special people and bless them with peace and happiness. In your name we pray, amen.
Good morning. It's always an honor to come out here and be a part of the community and be involved in these types of events. I had a really great time last year, so it was fantastic when Chief and I received the invitation to come out this morning and talk to you guys and make sure that we had folks in the 557th Weather Wing represented in the annual Veterans Day Parade. Mr. Holtz, I want to thank you so much for your service to our nation, for the example that you've set. Thank you for being the Grand Marshal today. Really fantastic to have you here spending Veterans Day with us. Really is an honor. Part of America's greatest generation, Tuskegee Airmen, fantastic role model. And so thank you very much. And how about a round of applause for Mr. Holtz and his service. Tyler, great job on that essay. I don't get to write you'll tell as I get through the speech, I have to write my own speeches. I don't have a speechwriter. You have a future in writing, and so really great job, fantastic, and you should be really proud of that work. So very good job there, Tyler. Chief Walker and I, we get to travel a lot. In the 557th Weather Wing, only about 25% of the wing is actually here on Offutt Air Force Base. The remaining 75% is spread across about 19 locations, literally around the world. And so Chief and I are on the road about every 2 weeks. We're hopping on an airplane and flying off somewhere. And we fly commercial. We don't have our own planes. Don't have any airplanes in the 557th Weather Wing that we get to fly around the world. And so we're schlepping it just like everybody else in the airlines. And so you learn to get pretty creative about where you can kind of catch sleep and where you can get some work done. And so this past week was no exception. We were just out at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia for the week at a Wing Commanders Conference. Colonel Mannion was there with us, and his chief got to spend about 3 days with all of the wing commanders in Air Combat Command. And it was a really good time to be able to go out and talk to fellow wing commanders. And of course, I'm flying back on Thursday, and I'm trying to get some work done in the airport and thinking about all the things I need to do. And I realized, wow, on Saturday, I'm going to have to give a speech. I better start working on that. And so I pull out my laptop computer and I start thinking about what I want to talk about with regards to Veterans Day this morning. And so there were a lot of things on my mind, actually, when I was sitting there in the airport trying to put together a fairly coherent 5-minute speech. And I kept thinking about a couple of things that were going on at the conference. And a couple of briefers gave some pretty interesting talks. And so, first I thought about this one briefing that was it was a briefing done by a captain that's getting his PhD, and he was briefing about the pilot shortage that we have right now in the Air Force. And so he had this really detailed analysis on why in his PhD research we had this shortage of pilots. And one slide that he brought up was really interesting, and it really relates to me in terms of being a veteran and Veterans Day. And he talked about why people join the Air Force. And so he had a slide, and he had kind of some reasons why people join the Air Force. And some of them are fairly lofty, some of them not so much. One lofty one, for example, was to change the world, and if you really think about it, and his argument for that, quite frankly, was, if you think about world history, whenever there's wars or that type of thing, it changes the world, right? And so some reasons were for that, and others were for more practical reasons, like they want to work with great people and new technology. And it sparked some really great conversation about why people join the Air Force. And so that was on my mind as I was thinking about putting my words together. Another thing that was on my mind was just when you're at any conference and you get a little break and you're kind of hanging out talking to fellow wing commanders, kind of asking, hey, what do you got going on this week? What are you doing this weekend? And every single wing commander I talked to, every single one was giving some type of speech or marching in a parade or going to a veteran's home or doing some combination of all those things. And so of course, Veterans Day happens every year, and I've always celebrated Veterans Day in some shape or form. But when you're in a forum like that and you're talking to all these senior leaders and you're thinking about, how they're going to spend this weekend as veterans and as military wing commanders, I suddenly realized, wow, Veterans Day is huge. I mean, all around the whole country. There's parades and people are shutting down roads and really celebrating. And we have our wing commanders out in venues just like this to represent their wings and the Air Force. And so I hadn't really thought about how huge Veterans Day really is until that very moment. And the third thing that I was thinking about while I was getting ready to put some words together about this speech was another slide that came up, and I can't remember. It's kind of one of those deals if you've ever been to a conference and you get a lot of briefings. I don't even remember what the briefing was about, and I can't remember who gave it, actually. I hope it wasn't my boss, but I can't remember. But I pulled up a slide that I've seen before, actually. It had a table, and it talked about the most trusted institutions in our country. And so Gallup does a poll every year, and they ask a series of basically you can rate it between, they have a great deal of trust versus, quite a lot of trust, and, no trust, and no opinion type thing. And on that list every year, just about every year, through several decades of that, the military is on the top of that list as being the most trusted institution. Usually in 2016, 72% of Americans felt that the United States military either displayed a great deal of trust, or they had a great deal of trust in the United States military, or quite a lot of trust, the two top categories, 72%, and that's about where it is. And so to put that in perspective, some other things hey, what else is on this list? And so banks, about 32%. That makes me a little nervous, actually, because I don't know, I'm not keeping my money under a mattress or anything, and so I'm wondering why people aren't that trusting in banks, but 32%. Medical system, 37%. Chamber of Commerce, you'll be happy to know, small business, 70%, right up there with the military, so great. Big business, not so much, so we won't talk about that. But really, really interesting to see that the military is on the top of all those times. And so I got to think about, well, why is that? I mean, think about those three things. Those three things can't be related. Why people join the military, lofty things. Why do we celebrate Veterans Day across the nation the way we do, shutting down roads, having parades, having venues like this? And why year after year is the military on the very top of that most trusted institutions? And so there's probably a lot of people that have studied this. I haven't. I just thought about it a little bit in the airport and jotted down a couple things and then got back and did a little bit of research. But to me, I think it really boils down to the values that we have in the military. And so I'll go back to why people join just for a second. And no, initially I probably joined the military for very practical reasons. But quite frankly, once I was in, I realized it's about the values of the people that I worked with every single day. Integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do, the Air Force core values. We sum that up as just integrity, service, and excellence. And so when I got back home, I looked up and I said, let me see what the other services have for core values. And of course, they all do have core values. And so our Navy and Marines share the same core values. Makes a lot of sense. Honor, courage, and commitment are the Marine Corps and Navy core values. The Coast Guard is honor, respect, and devotion to duty. The Army, I can remember the Army being duty on our country, quite frankly, but the Army's overachieving these days. They have 7 core values, and they are loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And so when you think of those core values, you start to think, wow, pretty incredible. You kind of put them all together: integrity, service, excellence, honor, courage, commitment, respect, devotion to duty, loyalty. What a phenomenal set of values. What a phenomenal set of values. And it's those values, I think, that make us celebrate Veterans Day, that cause people to join any branch of the service, and keep us on the top of that list. But I would argue this, that those values aren't just the values of our men and women that serve in the military. Those are our American values. And the reason why we're on the top of those lists is because the values of our military orient perfectly with the values of our country. And so thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. I wish you all a very great Veterans Day, and I look forward to a fantastic parade today. Thank you very much.
Well, I tell you what, that's going to be hard to top right there. Thanks, Steve. That was fantastic. I actually wrote some notes out, so I feel kind of bad, but here it goes. So, first of all, thank you so much on behalf of Chief Kraselnik, my command chief, and my wife Shannon. Thank you so much for inviting us out here for this great breakfast and this great day and this great ceremony. You know, I've only been here for 5 months now. It's been about 5.5 months. And it is amazing that as I look around the room here, I see leaders and pillars of the community. But honestly, after 5 months, I see dozens and dozens of friends, right? And that just goes to show what a great community this is. How you guys are so open, so inviting. You bring us in, and after 5 months, you have brought Shannon and I and Chief into your houses, into your dinners, into your formal nights. So again, thank you so much. I've got a couple of words here on some of the importance of the veterans. So, it's only fitting that a country that was founded in the shadow and strife of military conflict should take the time to celebrate those that have served and continue to serve. It's striking when you realize that there are currently about 20 million Americans who share a military service bond. Warriors that represent service contributions in every continent and every major conflict. These veterans are defined not by who they are, but what they have done. And those actions share the common tenets of service, commitment, and sacrifice. The service encompasses more than just the intrepid battlefield work so closely associated with our armed forces. You have to dig beyond the surface to get a true sense of just how much our active duty, our reservists, and our National Guardsmen do to keep America safe and thriving. Think about the countless civil projects that have been executed and supported by the Army Corps of Engineers. Think about the maritime patrols, the border security, and the drug interdiction operations conducted by our Navy, our Marine Corps, and Coast Guard teams. Think about the 24-hour GPS constellation operations that are going on right now, being monitored by your Air Force operators. Commitment. Commitment is another key trait that's inherent to the veterans. I see commitment in the eyes of our airmen and our sailors that defend our base every single day as I drive in and out of Offutt Air Force Base. I see it in the eyes of the brothers and sisters that are here with me this morning. And I see it in the eyes and the hearts and the souls of this great community of Bellevue. Most importantly, I see it in the eyes and the soul of heroes like Corporal Holtz. Military service commitments are measured in years, and in today's all-volunteer force, we rely completely on those that raise their hands to meet our national defense needs and to take those years head on. But commitment can't be fully defined purely by our service time. In World War I, it was defined by the doughboys and the Marines who risked it all by jumping trench walls to gain mere feet of territory. In World War II, it was defined by our United States Marines that stormed the beaches, sailors that maneuvered through U-boat-infested waters, and the air crews who fearlessly, day after day, drove their aircraft through flat clouds. In Vietnam, it was defined by both our regular troops and our draftees who answered our nation's great call. Additionally, we must also acknowledge the sacrifice endured by our veterans across the full spectrum of conflict and peacetime operations. In military context, it takes no words to define this trait. I look into the eyes of any Gold Star family member tells you everything you need to know about how veterans epitomize this virtue. From holidays missed to 24-hour shifts to the flag-draped coffins coming home to the bereaved loved ones, the sacrifice that our veterans make have no bounds. The veterans' legacy that has burned brightly for generations continues to shine in today's forces. The Department of Defense is more capable and more diverse than ever before, which can only mean bigger and better things for the American public that it supports. As the 55th Wing Commander and representative before you today, please allow me to convey our full gratitude for the support you've given to our service members, both past and current. Team Offutt, man, we are blessed in spades to live and work in such a remarkable and uplifting community. If commitment is defined by action, there's no end in sight to the commitment demonstrated by our Greater Bellevue and Omaha metro area family. Thank you. Enjoy your Veterans Day. Thank you very much.
So good morning, and it is really going to be hard to add to what the two colonels have already set us up with, but let me echo what they have said. So on behalf of General Hyten, Chief McMahon from U.S. Strategic Command, we are also super pleased to be here today to acknowledge not only the community and what a wonderful community Bellevue is, home to us, and giving us this opportunity in this forum, but to also thank all the veterans right throughout the years. Corporal Holt, thank you so much for your leadership, your service, and I'll come back to that in just a second. So on this day where we honor all veterans in all our mission areas throughout time, there's a group in particular I hope that we don't forget, particularly being here in Omaha. So it is important to remember that I think this nation has enjoyed 70 years of nuclear non-use starting back in World War II. We have enjoyed the absence of major power war since World War II. And I'll tell you, I don't think that was an accident. That was not a fluke in history. That was the results of a dedicated group of what you might refer to as the strategic veterans who went to work every day, right? Remember what we were facing back then, and in fact face to this day, is the only existential threat this nation has ever faced, right? A force declared hostile to us that could have destroyed this nation in the course of an afternoon. So what did those veterans go do for us? That was 4,000 strategic deterrent patrols and still counting, where you get in a submarine and basically check out of life for about 3 months. That was uncountable sorties on bomber and command and control aircraft. That's uncountable hours in launch control silos and all the effort that went into that. There is no memorial back in Washington, D.C. that you can go see for those veterans. But we owe them an equal debt as we do to all of our veterans, and particularly here in Omaha, here in Bellevue. Many of those great patriots live amongst us as well. So as we're honoring and celebrating our veterans, know that I would like to make sure we include them on the list. They and all veterans set a standard. It goes beyond what they did for us. They accomplished the mission, the values, etc. They set a standard that those of us that are still in uniform aspire to live up to every day, right? I go into my office, there's a picture of Curtis LeMay on the wall, and I ask myself, would he be happy with me if he was to walk into this room today? And from him on down, right, we owe a great debt to all of our veterans, particularly the strategic ones. So on behalf of General Hyten and Chief McMahon, thank you for having us today. Looking forward to the parade, and thank you so much for all you do for us.
Thank you, Vice Admiral Charles. Richard, I appreciate your kind words and support in our community also. And also, before we move on here, I want to thank all of our military members in our room here for your sacrifice and service to our country. And I'd be remiss not to mention that the veterans we don't recognize are the spouses. So if I could give a hand of applause to the spouses that are with us here too. This is my favorite part here. It's my pleasure this year to introduce our Grand Marshal, Robert Holtz. Robert is a beloved resident of Richmond Terrace and has just observed his 93rd birthday on Tuesday, November 6th. So happy birthday and congratulations. I think he's in better shape than I am. He is the last known Tuskegee Airman in Nebraska. He became a Tuskegee Airman in July of 1945 when he was assigned to the 118th Base Unit, Squadron D, at Godman Field in Kentucky. At Godman Field, he served with legendary Captain Benjamin Davis, who made history in October 1954 when he was appointed the first black general in the Air Force and was awarded his 4th star by President Bill Clinton in 1970. Robert served Davis as a draftsman, drawing up maps and other important documents. Born in 1924 in North Omaha, the son of Robert William and Eunice Anderson Holtz, he was one of 9 children. And when he says life was hard, one of 9 children in that era, you can only imagine truly the sacrifice then. But Dad never had much money. If he had made $25 a week, that would have been great. Those were the Depression years, and the kids chipped in. In Holt's case, he sold newspapers on the street in downtown Omaha for years before working as a busboy at the Blackstone Hotel. My prior career was in the newspaper business, and I know that's a tough job, out in all kinds of weather, but quite an interesting background there. In November 1942, at the age of 18, he enlisted in the Army Air Corps. There was a draft during that period, but it did not extend to 18-year-olds, so enlistment was his only route to service. He enlisted in Omaha and was assigned to the Jefferson Barracks military post at LeMay, Missouri. His career traversed several paths, but led eventually to Langley Field in Virginia, where Holt's strong high school record made him eligible for an aviation training program for black pilots. He passed the test, but later, as he puts it, washed out of the program. That was very disappointing, says Robert. Subsequently, in July of 1945, he was assigned to Godman Field, where his service with the 118th Base Unit Squadron D made him a Tuskegee Airman. He was honorably discharged in 1946, or 48, correct? 46, and spent most of his years thereafter in Detroit, serving as a letter carrier with the U.S. Post Office. Along with his induction into the Nebraska Aviation Hall of Fame in 2007 and the Congressional Gold Medal awarded to the Tuskegee Airmen. So if I could you please welcome Robert Holtz to the podium?
On behalf of Mr. Holtz, I'd just like to say that this is really great. I spent 28 years in the United States Air Force, and I never heard the term Tuskegee Airmen. In talking to Tuskegee Airmen and checking their history, I find that they were in locations where German prisoners of war enjoyed more privileges on base than they did. And in the 1940s, when President Truman signed the executive order integrating the military, things changed dramatically, but not to the extent that we see here today, where we have the city, we have the chamber, we have state representatives honoring the Tuskegee Airmen. And Mr. Holtz and I both deeply appreciate the outpouring of respect and affection. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the kind words, and Robert, thank you for your service and sacrifice, and thanks for joining us here today. We are honored that you would share your story with us, and on behalf of the Bellevue-Offutt community, we have a small token of our appreciation. So, accept that.
Thank you.
You good? So, a special day. I think it's once every 7 years we actually land on Veterans Day, so it makes today even more special to have our parade and our recognition on Veterans Day. Again, I want to thank our host, Sac Federal Credit Union, and I believe credit unions weren't part of the 30% in banks. I know you're sitting next to a banker there, but we'll put the credit union up into 70%. Is that all right, Colonel Dickerson? So because they're part of that small business group. So, but I want to thank everybody for attending. If you'll notice on the back of your programs, we have additional members that are supporters of the parade here within our business community, and I want to give them a round of applause and thank them for their support. So if I could give them a round, please. The Bellevue community is a very generous community and very supportive of the Bellevue-Offutt community, and Again, as you can see by some of our sponsors, events like this wouldn't happen without their generosity and their support, and it's great to see that connection with the community, the city, the schools, and Offutt Air Force Base. So again, thank you. Now, if I go with our final tradition, the annual reading of In Flanders Fields, and if I could have Mayor Sanders please join me at the podium to lead us in the reading.
It's always a great honor to do this, but it's tough to get through. I can't tell you how big of an honor it is to be here today amongst all of you. Robert Holtz, such a great appreciation for everything you've done, and thank you for everything you continue to do. Bob Rose, thank you. Our U.S. Senator, Deb Fisher, thank you so much for being here today. It's a great honor. Nebraska State Senator Crawford, Admiral, Colonel. Chaplain, thank you so much for being here today. It's such a great honor. And to all those that have served, are serving, and those that will continue, and those that may serve, thank you, as we live in such a great country and get to use this day to honor all our men and women. So bear with me, I get to do this tradition, and we'll get through it, and then have a great parade. In Flanders Fields. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row by row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up your quarrel with your foe. To you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep through poppies grow in Flanders Field. Thank you. Have a great parade. And don't forget, today is Hug a Veteran. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Sanders. This ends our program, and we're going to encourage you and welcome you to join us in the parade. The parade starts at 10, so I know some of you have other duties. You and me together here. So we'll see you out on the parade route. So thank you for coming out again.